You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
What's up, everyone, guys? Welcome back to the Meta Show. Sorry we missed you guys last week. It was Christmas holidays, and there wasn't much to talk about, so we decided that we'd push it till this week. So, guys, what's up? We had happy holidays and happy New Year for everyone here in January 2016.
It is a new year, and things are kind of interesting all the way around. So we have a new intro, as people in chat are taking a look at and getting a chance to experience now. So I'm curious to see how people like it. Give us your feedback there in chat. I actually couldn't hear the intro because I have to have my own Twitch window here muted, so I have no idea, but it looked serious. RIP. My camera is frozen. Oh dear.
Yeah, so the video is working. It's just your camera for some reason, and it's not even frozen on Skype. It's working on. Hold on. Let me try something real quick.
Oh my.
Yeah. Is this a different problem than the normal?
Is it my good?
It's working now.
It looks like it's my good side. Like, okay, we're gonna be all right here. Then that's funny.
All right.
Interesting.
We're good. Wow,
be careful, I might make eye contact with you by accident. You look too closely at the screen. But yeah, no, it's been. I'd like to hear some feedback about what people think about the intro, to see whether they like that. And our video team has been hard at work doing all sorts of interesting things. And it's good to get back in action here. I have, it's been 2 weeks. I don't really know whether I'm equipped to rant properly, get us into trouble. We'll see how things go.
Well, it's actually been a quite busy week. We have a lot of stuff to talk about in Nullsec Power Hour, and we're going to jump into it in just a minute, guys. But the quick update, we are giving away 3 rookie ships again today, and any donations or new subscribers, we'll shout them out if they come during the actual interview segment, which we have Asher Alias on today, FC for the Imperium. If they come during that segment, we're actually going to wait till the end of the show to give you a shout out. So don't worry, you will get your shout out, but
you'll get your moment in the sun.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
We had people saying that they didn't like the interview people, like the guests getting interrupted, and so I think this is for the best. Interesting. It's good. We actually do have a lot of news to go through. Somebody's saying that they missed me in the SA thread because I haven't been posting too much in the last.
Thank God.
In the last. I guess week, basically. I got sick after Christmas, and I ended up having a mild cold / flu. That was one of the reasons why we didn't do a meta show last week, was I had the plague and it was the holidays. And then after that, New Year's happened, and I sort of disappeared for almost a 48-hour long period over the last 2 days, and I'm only just now recovering. So don't worry, I will get back to posting, because never not post. Posting is actually an official metric in the Imperium now. When we are judging in Goonswarm, our corporations, we have a post count metric to make sure that people are focusing on the bottom line.
Yeah. So guys, that's I don't post because I'm a terrible poster.
You are a terrible poster.
I am a terrible poster.
It's probably for the best. If we had a muck dot rated based upon posting quality, it would be bad. But shall we go ahead and get into it? We've got a fair amount of actual combat to discuss.
Yeah, so jumping straight into the Nullsec Power Hour, guys. Probably the furthest back, biggest newsworthy topic. We're going to have the Coxio fight, but we're gonna wait to get into that. So guys, I know you want to hear about it, so we're gonna wait. But we're gonna wait till Asher comes on. So after the 30-minute mark, we'll be bringing him in for that. Okay. But after that, guys, we do have the Dread Bomb on the Imperium Supercat fleet while it was inside its staging tower. Which shout out to Tibrizzle for some quick thinking there, dropping the shields. And if you haven't seen the video for that, I think I have it linked here. Let me make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I will link it in chat for you guys. But awesome job to Tibrizzle for the quick thinking. We did lose a Hell. The Imperium lost a Hell in that fight, but they ended up bagging quite a few Dreadnoughts, and it came out pretty even this wise. I think we actually came out ahead. But if you take into account insurance. If you take into account insurance, it was pretty even.
Yeah, because everything was totally insured, and they were totally suicide. Okay, so this was the most ridiculous story. So okay. I'm just going to go ahead and lay this out. So the OSS, and this was not actually led by Suis at the time, though he had some dreads there. It was what was it? Cephi Kills, I think. I don't know how to actually pronounce his name. Were going to gank an Imperium Supercap group, or at least try to get a Hell and possibly a Titan that were outside of the staging tower's pos shields. The only problem was is that the staging tower was an Amok Dot pos, and the capital fleet leader was Tivrizzle, who is in Amok Dot Corporation. So the moment that they dropped these 26, 28 dreads, which were not suicide fit, some of these things were faction fit all the way up to like 4.5 billion ISK, like pimp fit Moros. Good stuff in there. There's all these Titans inside the POS. So Tivrizzle, the FC, just offlines the force field of the POS. And suddenly, instead of just ganking this one Hell and maybe a Wyvern that was out there, all the Doomsdays just whoosh, and they lost pretty much everything. It was a really, like, let me see if...
I think a couple carriers got out because they weren't sieged, and I think one, maybe two dreads got out that were able to jump immediately after their siege cycle. I think that was it.
It was like 123 billion ISK loss total. And I think that almost all of that came from...
it was like 70. I think 75 that was, or no, 80 of that was the actual dreads and caps for the OSS side. So we came out quite a few or far ahead. So we can be kind of smug about that. And from what I heard was that the hostiles didn't think that there was anyone that could offline the tower inside this AMOC pass. But I guess they haven't heard of the AMOC Supercap backbone. that is the Goonstorm Federation at the moment.
But it was pretty interesting. Like in general, so it looks like a total of 89, almost 90 billion ISK lost on the OSS side and 33 billion on the Imperium side, because we lost 2 carriers, Dread, and a super carrier apparently. Actually, no, I'm reading the battle report wrong.
And in chat, why I am so terrible at E. Well, good for them for trying. I agree. you should definitely keep on trying.
Well, that worked out pretty well. I'm sort of amused by that. That was one of those moments where all of a sudden somebody says we're in a cap fight on Mumble, and I'm like, what is this? Like, we weren't planning on anything, and then it's like, oh, it's over. Don't worry, we won. And I'm like, but I mean, as soon as that first Doomsday volley goes out, like inside of the first, I guess, 45 seconds of the fight, that's pretty much done and done. Like.
Well,
next,
if you look at the Hellfit, the Hellfit had nothing. Like he had all eye stabs and then a damage control and his lows. Of course he got neuted out. So the only reason he probably died was because of the neuts with active hardeners and no power diagnostic systems, which means he has less overall cap. So maybe next time he'll rethink his fit a little bit.
That was actually something that Diesel 1975 is saying in chat that reminds me. Is he says one of the funniest things about that entire incident was not so much that the gank went awry, but was the premature smug posting on our eve. Where one of the people from the fleet immediately went in there on the OSS side and was bragging about how the Imperium was going to be losing a supercap fleet and all this other stuff. And they, we lost the one Hell, and then just the thread turned and it was glorious. the dangers of hubris, which of course I am, one to talk. But in general, that was a lot of fun. It's good to see people doing cap ganks, even when they go awry. Hilarity ensues. Speaking of cap ganks.
Yes,
that's a subtle segue into another cap gank gone awry. This time on the Imperium side, we apparently CO2 lost a Nyx and a Ragnarok by getting baited by a PL streamer.
It was pretty magnificent. I was watching the video before the show today, and I'll link it in chat. But basically, the streamer goes, and it looked like a Megathron, either Megathron or Kronos, and he jumped in 2 Archons to rep him while he was fighting this gang of zealots from Bastion. So with this fleet, this like AHAC, this small little zealot fleet from Bastion on the field fighting these 2 carriers and the Megathron, the CO2 decides to assign a Ragnarok and a Nyx to kill.
Well, we should be clear. We should be clear here, because it's the Nyx and the Ragnarok are actually piloted by the same guy, and he only recently joined CO2. He used to be in the Bastion not too long ago, and occasionally there are Titan pilots who are really aggressive with going for doomsday things, and apparently decide that doing a drive-by, you can usually see when it's not like an alliance level operation, right? So you see only a few pilots on the kill mail on this gank side, like the guy got baited, he went for the hubris doomsday, And I don't know, like, I don't really get upset about this. Like, Boat came into Illum and was like, why did he do this? Well, and it's like, well, these guys, you know, they don't talk to anybody, right? Like, if you're a Titan pilot, it's like a Salo Cameron kind of thing. If they're just going to go out and do it, they're not going to say, hey guys, I'm going to be over here, going to do this drive-by doomsday, because of course everybody will say, what the hell were you thinking? Don't do that, right?
Yeah. Well, I saw, like I said, I saw it on CO2, and I just assumed it was like a Sebastian type thing or something like that. And Sebastian is one of the guys like Salah who can do it and moonwalk away.
And
with
Sebastian's
both fingers
pulled it
up.
off
I mean,
a
like,
million times. Like, he's famous for it. So, but this guy apparently, I think he'd done it in the Bastion once, and I'm not sure whether he lost a Titan previously, or was there?
I don't think so. I think this is his first Titan loss. Okay. Also, quick shout out to Mike Rarelli. Nailed it. Thanks so much for the subscription, guys. Make sure you get some beer licks in the chat for him. But no, it was like it literally guy on stream, which was a pretty great feat to pull off, like a bait while on stream, because as a streamer you can't really talk to people or communicate because everything you're doing on screen is being shown. So
I guess you have to have like a second audio cable or something, like, you know, use virtual audio cable to be able to communicate with people where people can't hear it.
Right.
And yeah, somebody here is putting it in chat. The Vindicator sent in a couple of Archons to back him up. CO2, or this individual from CO2, drops on him to counter, and then because the guy was doing like a 24-hour long live stream or something.
Yeah.
So this is clearly like, you know, well, that's really all there is to say about that. Conveniently, we have you know, quite a few other things that are going on here, actually. So like, gotta make sure that we're not going to be running into Asher's time. So, you know, that gank happened.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Do we want to talk about what do you want to go after next?
I want to give a quick shout out to Hendrik Taladar with his nullsec recap. So what I guess don't actually know is Taladar's actually been doing some video work here at TMC now. So just want to make sure we get some publicity out to his video. We'll drop that in chat. And a lot of people have commented on the video saying, why isn't there any of the low-sec fights in it? It's because it's a null-sec recap.
It's a null-sec.
But by the way, it's a null-sec recap.
Man. Here is this thing titled nullsec. EVE Online is really, it's hard to, you know, you stare too long into the abyss and the abyss stares back at you and makes eye contact, and then you get really scared and call people a sociopath. That's yet another eye contact joke. But no, it is interesting. Hendrik has come back to TMC. This video is posted on his own YouTube channel, but it's excellent because he does a lot of research, and highly recommend that you guys check it out. And we're delighted to have him being back on the team. So yeah, and
he makes really great content and a lot of stuff he puts out. So he definitely puts some work into it. So welcome back, Hendrik.
Okay, yes. Now let's talk. Let's do Cloud Ring, actually. So this is sort of like a broader thing as to what the hell the Imperium is up to, right? We've had a series of, well, actually, I think this Cloud Ring brawl was the one that was this one where we lost the Rattlesnake.
This one we get dunked. We get dunked pretty hard.
Okay, so this is the day after we won the Asher's big fight, which we're not going to be talking about until Asher actually comes on here. So basically, there's this big victory where Asher's hunting the Snuff and Tissue Macarial fleet, and then the next day, an FC gets out with a Maze fleet, which is a Rattlesnake Doctrine, and just gets wasted, basically. Like, it was pretty one-sided. We pretty much got obliterated on
pretty one-sided. 79 ships lost to six ships killed.
It was a total and utter massacre, and we basically just have to go, welp, we done fucked up. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it. That was what we call in managerial parlance an org failure. So thankfully we'll get a chance when Asher gets back on here to say something that'll make our poor wounded egos feel a bit better. But you know, this is actually a good layup to talk about what we're doing in Cloud Ring in the first place. So what is happening is the Imperium, whereby this is sort of an experiment that I've been working on for the Ministry of Foreign Oversight, is we're trying to turn Cloud Ring into a Dominion, right? And the way that works is we're trying to find a scalable system of conquest that will allow us to take a region and get profits from it that we can then distribute to the entire coalition, so people can continue to lose Rattlesnake fleets and not be bothered by it, without actually having to take and hold the region. So this is complicated because it's never been done before. So the first couple things we tried didn't work, right? At first we go in there and we say, you know, pay us 20% of your moon goo. In return, we give you super capital building facilities. We will give you best practices, infrastructure, this, that, the other thing. And everybody was like, screw you, no. To be expected, new system, people are going to do that. So the culture and Fwetit and everybody else who's living in Cloud Ring just ran, right? Ripped their towers down, detowered them, ran. So then for the last couple of weeks, we tried another experiment where we were going to create a vacuum. The idea was that we would simply level every tower there and leave all these moons empty, and then see whether people would move back in and take them and try to set up shop. The answer is no. What actually ends up happening is that it is so valuable to tower in R64 that you just put a small placeholder tower on there to mine it, and it pretty much instantly pays for itself. So our military was sort of doing this dual, sort of two fronts out of D2, where we're staging and pure blind attacking into Cloud Ring, chasing people around in low sec while also grinding through these towers. Now we're in sort of experiment number 3. And it's entirely possible, this is important for everybody to understand, that you have to be willing to try things and fail if you're ever going to make any kind of new organization or do really anything and learn anything. And so that's what we're doing here. The new iteration on this is, okay, well, the vacuum stuff didn't work. So what we're going to do, and what we have been doing over the course of the last, I guess, week, is taking moons and having Goonswarm Offensive Logistics put a full-blown Dickstar tower on the valuable ones, which are covered in hardeners and a huge pain in the ass, mine the goo ourselves, put that into the coalition sort of treasure chest. And now the idea is that the Ministry of Foreign Oversight will, kind of like with the Section 8 renter program, be reaching out to people who would be willing to be subjects and then say, okay, here is the tower, we're going to sell this to you, and you take up residence as a subject with the infrastructure there. Because there's a lot of people who would be willing to pay a 20% tax that don't have the logistics to be able to put a tower down themselves, blah, blah, blah. So that's where we are now. And that's kind of what we're working on now. So we are taking these moons, putting down our own towers. That's going into a common coalition pool. And then when we get people who are subjects in the Dominion of Cloud Ring, that then just shifts over to, again, the tribute goes into the same kitty. So that is what we are up to in Cloud Ring. And we should know if it doesn't work inside of, a couple weeks.
Okay.
So you should be seeing more moon fights and us losing more fleets randomly, which is good.
So is there a plan for what's going to happen if this works out? Like, if this works out, where does it go from there?
Well, if it does work, what's going to happen is all of the other blocks who are basically, so the way that blocks compete in EVE is if somebody is going to take the risk of doing something new, right, as soon as the best practice is proven, then everybody steals it. Right. So we saw that with Slowcat fleets back in the day. Those were a thing that PL pioneered. And then pretty rapidly, as soon as we were like, wow, this is the best practice, we in the Imperium stole it and started using it as DOS boot. Right.
Right.
And so what I suspect will happen is if the Dominion system scales and it works, the moment that the Imperium figures out something that they can actually conquer a region without owning it, at that very moment, then I would expect to see both PL and Legion of Death begin. It'll basically be the era of colonialism, because previously we had sort of a feudal renter style era in the Dominion system with people conquering half the galaxy, divvying it up, and establishing renters. If we crack the code for the Dominion system, we'll have a leg up. So we'll get the first couple of regions before the other guys do. But I would be disappointed if Death and Grath and Elise and the boys don't immediately start purging the other half of the galaxy again. So we're just kind of getting kicked in the face as we try and fail. But the moment that we crack the code, I think everybody else is going to get on that bandwagon. So there you go.
Awesome. So I guess next and last thing up on our nullsec recap is going to be a Whiptail loss, which is an AT frigate that this certain gentleman was trying to sell on Reddit the past little while, and don't think he can sell it anymore.
Yeah, it's technically not a nullsec recap. Of course, we can't really troll people for asking where the lowsec news is in Hendrick's videos, while also talking about a Whiptail loss that took place in HiSec. But basically, anytime that you lose an AT frigate or ship of any kind, it's usually more than 100 billion ISK. He was looking to sell it, and it announced as much on Reddit. And then he went over, I guess there's a socket connection issue when he was moving through HiSec while Flashy Red. And so he lost the Whiptail. I think this is the first time that I've seen a Alliance tournament ship lost to NPCs ever. I could be wrong, we haven't done the digging on that yet, but I'm pretty sure that this is literally the first time that NPCs have ever killed an Alliance tournament ship.
I'm thinking.
Rip.
And I'm pretty sure you're right. Pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, because we would have heard about this before.
Yeah.
This is just like, wow, okay, well, that sucks. I sort of hope that it wasn't a socket closed. I mean, I don't know the pilot. I think his name is like Planet 6 or something or other, but like, if he actually lost it, not due to somebody is pointing out in chat that if it was due to a socket closed, he should be reimbursed, and then we'll be able to find that out from him. Right. So if the guy doesn't get it reimbursed and replaced, then that it probably wasn't, and he probably just fucked up.
He probably went AFK on a gate. My money's on AFK on a gate.
That would be pretty hilarious. Yeah. That, or maybe his dog started barking out at him like seconds after he jumped into the into high sec and didn't hit warp in time. So rip.
So guys, let's see. Moving on, we got one thing covering CCP, please. Then we're gonna jump into the Asher Power Half Hour.
Power Half Hour.
Yes, nailed it.
Sounds like half power. Power Half Hour is like. Okay.
Yeah, let's just go with it.
So I'll just roll with it. Okay, we'll just do it. Okay. Power Half Hour. But before we get there, so we have sort of an interesting, CCP politics. Poor Laz. You got this is your favorite topic in the universe. Do you wanna take us into this before
my favorite topic?
Favorite topic. I know you love politics, and I know that you love elections in particular. So,
I just love killing people. I mean, wait. I should be addicted.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. This is really important because somebody just called out my red shirt here. So we have White Bull 2 says, is that the same shirt every time you have the same shirt? So maybe the color balance is slightly off, but this is one of my fantastic new red shirts. This is a sort of an incandescent red. It's a nice burgundy that I got from Express. My lovely wife got this for me for Christmas. Is a new red shirt. So now I'm up to about 7, or I think actually maybe a full 9 Express red shirts of various colors. And this is my first time wearing it since I got it for Christmas, and because I was sick. And I really like it. It's sort of like this sort of, you can't see it unless it's in person, but it's got sort of a nice iridescent aspect to it. So no, it's not the same red shirt, and if you're colorblind and you can't appreciate the subtle distinctions between a burgundy and a maroon and a crimson and a blood red and a bright red, then you just need to learn your shades of red.
There goes one of my shirts I can't bring to any more Eve meets. Slowly going through my entire wardrobe, and anything the Mittani has, I can't wear anymore.
That's true. It's true. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's hear Laz. Why don't you take us away? Tell us about it.
So guys, as you've seen, if you've been watching Reddit or the CSM forums, a lot of people are starting to run their candidacy posts for the CSM in 2016. But as far as I've seen, I haven't seen any type of official announcement from CCP saying that they're going to actually run a 2016 CSM. So if you guys have seen anything, go ahead and drop it in chat, let us know. But like I said, as far as I know, there's been nothing said. Do you guys think people are jumping the gun?
We know that there is regulation. I mean, there's going to be a CSM election. The candidacy process has begun, and we know that CCP is all over it because somebody tried to run, actually Gevlin Goblin tried to run a protest candidacy thread, which got shot down by CCP Falcon. So if there was not going to be a CSM election, why would they be regulating these threads? And I don't think people would be posting their candidacies otherwise. It's going to be interesting. I mean, the CSM is always the silly season. And I think that this season in particular will be especially silly because of all of the, it appears that the focus group stuff, and as well as Fozzie's outbursts on Twitter, or I think there's only one a while back about the CSM, has resulted in a lot of people sort of wondering, is the CSM, like the fact that we have to ask this question,
right?
Or that you would ask that question. I'm sure there will be a CSM, but the question itself is asked because of the sort of equivocal behavior from CCP regarding the focus groups and all this other stuff.
And all the stuff we've heard from CSM members lately, that the CCP isn't really talking to them anymore ever since the focus groups really started.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that in general, the idea of people getting together and talking and criticizing and providing feedback is something that sounds great in theory. And I think it is actually a very important and useful tool for feedback for CCP, and CCP has profited from it greatly, and it's helped the player base a lot in the past. But you have to have people who have a thick skin there, who are able to control the people on the CSM who are disruptors or dividers. identify them and be able to accept criticism. And some people can't accept criticism; they just flip out. So I think that I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting because I think that this year I haven't really looked at the candidates yet. But from what I'm told, almost no one from the current iteration of the CSM is running again.
I think there's one. I think it's Fuzzmeister or something. Is his Reddit name? Is Steve Ronigan or something like that? I think his name.
Steve Ronigan. Okay. I don't know how to actually pronounce the name. I know the one that you're talking about. Yeah. So it's going to be curious. I mean, the CSM proved itself in the minutes that Scion insisted get put at the start of the minutes for one of the last summits, where they said every single criticism and feedback item and prediction that the CSM had made about Fozzie about Aegis Sov before it came out was proven true in practice from the reaction of the player base. And so usually when you have people who will be oracles and will tell you how things are going to react, you have two options. Either you stick your head in the sand and you do nothing, and then they end up like it's the Cassandra complex thing, right? Like, I am warning you what is going to happen. You are going to ignore my warnings, do this damn silly thing in this damn silly way anyway, and now look where we are. If only you would listen to us. And that is essentially what happened there with CSM 10. The alternative is you could actually use their feedback and avoid the problem. That's
a novel idea.
Yeah. So Steve is apparently an industrialist, and people in chat seem to like Steve Ronkin. I have not heard anything bad about him. Noisy Gamer is saying that Gorsky Carr, who is known for being a Reddit mod on our Eve, and thus shares lots of responsibility for everything that takes place there. Sorry, dude. He's going to run again, and so that'll be interesting. And I'm sure Brownkin, I've heard nothing bad about. Gorsky is very reactive, and I think that's hilarious. I think that we should put, I don't know who we're going to put on the Imperium ballot.
Well, Science said in chat just a minute ago, it was Zenuria 2016. Yeah,
I mean, Zenuria is an interesting opportunity there. I mean, we will probably put him there at some level. I mean, I don't think Thoric is running again. I don't know whether Scion wants to run again. I think that Aerith has been making noise about being interested in it. So, I mean, if Aerith wants to go, we'll absolutely send him there because he's a financial and industrialist genius. And, if he wants to take a crack at it, there's the windmill.
He's very assertive as well. He's very assertive.
There's your donkey. Off you go. But no, I mean, I think that it would actually be pretty useful for him to go if he wants to. So I mean, if Scion wants to run again, we can run Scion. But potentially, I would be pretty happy with like a Scion, Aerith, and Zenuria ticket. I don't know if any directors or CEOs in the Imperium are also interested in doing it. Nobody's talked to me about this. So if anybody wants to do this, hit me up so I don't announce a ticket on live stream that we have no idea. So that'll be interesting.
The Noisy Gamer just dropped in chat. If Scion wants to run again, get the straight jacket.
Get the straight jacket.
Yeah, straight jacket. Like, he's going to go crazy from it.
Yeah. I don't really, I think that it is interesting because, like, knowing Scion and seeing, so every time we have somebody go to the CSM, it's sort of like the same process, basically. Like, I have watched so many people that we have sent to Iceland, and even people just unaffiliated with us go through this process of they go there all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then they're trying to be reasonable adults if they are reasonable adults, and then there's sort of like this breaking point where they go, holy crap, what is this? And then there's sort of you can see when people are no longer like greenhorns when it comes to CSMing, and so the player base tends to go like, wow, what happened to that guy? He used to be so nice and transparent and reasonable. And then about 4 or 5 months into everybody's CSM term, if they weren't unreasonable to begin with, by the end of it, they're pretty much just like not going to bother pulling their punches. And so you saw that with CSM 5, you saw that with CSM 6, you saw that with pretty much every CSM. People reach a breaking point, and then they just start saying things like nobody's actually
Well, we're actually cutting into Asher's time.
Well, let's not do that. Let's,
yeah,
let's get done with the CSM crap and bring Asher on.
So we're gonna do the roll real quick. Anyone's talking chat, make sure you're following the stream. Gonna do the roll in 30 seconds. But while you guys are typing in chat and doing all that, we're gonna go ahead and introduce Asher, one of the main FCs for the Imperium. I think he might be fighting for Villy's spot and Villy's recently vacant slot in the Dunk Force 1.
Dunk Force 1. Well, he's certainly been doing a lot of dunking recently, so.
All right, hello.
Hello.
I'm working to get to number 21. Number 21 on the FC list. Billy's gone, so I'm looking to jump up. If I can hit the teens in the 2016, that'll make my year.
Is that your resolution? New Year resolution right there?
I've got some notes. I've been sitting here for 30 minutes very quietly, and I'm sitting on my hands because I wanted to talk, but I didn't unmute my microphone. First off, I would like to announce that I am not running for CSM, so please do not vote for me. I know it's gonna be tough. Secondly, you guys mentioned that Whiptail that died to NPCs. I don't think one has died to only NPCs, but Bob from marketing lost an Utu to like a Marmite guy, where Gate Guns did 90% of the damage to him. So,
but that was at least in combat.
Yeah,
right? Like
yes,
I don't think that one counts. I don't think
it was,
like
it was to Marmite, so that's pretty much an NPC. I just want to throw that out there.
I think Tora's in chat too. Tora Bashida, leader of Marmite.
Excellent. That's hysterical.
Excellent. Good. Hi.
So you've had a lot of adventures recently. I mean, the last few, basically the last month or so, you have been leading a lot of the fleets and mentoring a lot of our FCs in the Imperium who are taking our first baby steps into LowSec, which
Speaking
began...
of tilting at windmills, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, it began tilting at windmills. I mean, we sort of went into LowSec because we're not supposed to be good at LowSec, and we hate weakness. So it's basically we're going to go there and we're going to fight and die until we figure this out and start killing. Revamped all of our doctrines over the past month, and then lots of success began to happen. And this is kind of a story that you have probably the most breadth of understanding of anyone. You've been in it since the whole thing began.
Well, yeah, if you want to waste your time, I spent hours writing out a very long battle report. So you can read in depth the autism that goes into making a fleet work.
Why don't you just start us off before we get to this big, amazing battle where you kicked all kinds of ass? Why don't you just start with telling us about your initial adventures in LowSec on this campaign, how it went for you, and how we got to the point of your victory?
All right, well, so an interesting thing about the Imperium is that we're so large that we're not as nimble as other organizations. We can't be. You can't have 40,000 characters and just say, hey, guys, we're switching doctrines tomorrow. Like, that won't work.
Supply issues, for one, yeah.
Right. Everyone's like, why don't you guys just fly Macarials? There's not enough. Can't do it. So we were flying missile Tengus, which people really hated. I mean, people outside of our group, they thought they were terrible, but they worked for our purposes. And when we went to LowSec, that's what we had. I felt very much like Rumsfeldian. You go to war with the army you have, not the army you want.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a mismatch. The Snuff is very good. Snuff is generally who've been finding stuff in their friends, Snuffbox and their friends.
They're also Rans.
Yes, exactly. AKA the first primary.
The shade of it all. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a very kind of specific way we make doctrines. We make them goon-proof, which means generally relatively easy to run, relatively easy to train into, and easy to supply. And this is based on experiences from even before I was involved and other people were involved. But, it's like your institutional memory. Like, Tech Fleet got whelped, and we couldn't replace it. So our finance guys are terrified of replacing ships that we can't, that are limited edition ships. So we went in, we fought with Tengus, and it was not working very well. I fought in one particular fight where we basically broke even by dropping caps. And, I had to use all the tricks in the book just to break even. It's very frustrating. I know Laz was doing this too. You have to, basically with those missile Tengus, you had to be hitting like your best performance to come even with these guys.
Right.
But we had to sit around and kind of say, we adopted rattlesnakes now, but we came up with the doctrine, and when we decided to shift, I'd say early November. It just took that long sort of to gear up the machines of war. So spending the last 2 months fighting these guys has been pretty interesting because, we had to work with what we had, and obviously there's people saying, well, why don't we do this right now? And we were like, we'd like to, but we have to do our things. So but I think we're in a good place now.
Well, that's good. I mean, we're obviously in a good place now because we've finally actually got like the supply line sorted out. We've changed all of our doctrines and we re-implemented, and improved a Hurricane fleet. We have Maze fleet, which is the Rattlesnake doctrine, which actually does pretty well, barring the whelp that we just had in Cloud Ring, and a Proteus fleet, which is also known as Beard Fleet, and we had some sort of steps that we had to use to adjust that because we had an MWD on it and that didn't work, and we sort of got our heads out of our asses, unfucked that.
You're triggering me, Mittens. You're triggering
I am. You were one of the biggest victims there of conformity.
The MWD works fine on it. Like the ship itself and the whole everything was fine with it. It's just we were throwing it against its direct counter is the issue.
And the MWD is more of a nullsec thing. It's more of a bubbles type thing. And in lowsec, that's not something you have to worry about. I look at like this snuff, the way they fly, and literally they'll have all their ships just approach one guy. So they're in this tiny little ball, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could bomb this. It's just you all the things that you learn, all the kind of wisdom you get from flying in nullsec, a lot of it can't apply to lowsec, and so it's really going to a totally different kind of battleground.
A lot of the rules get broken, and it is interesting. So you don't have to worry about bombs, you don't have to worry about bubbles. A lot of the power in these lowsec fleets comes from people not worrying about getting potted. So they use slave sets. And one of the better ideas that Jay Amazingness, who is now in charge of like FC reform in the Imperium and making sure that we have people training up successors and things like that to get promoted in our FC system, he established a bounty on pods and lowsec. And I'm not sure why we got so many pods in your amazing battle, Asher, and I'm wondering if we got as many pods as we did because either people were bringing pod sniping ships, or whether it was just nullsec level tie-dye brought to lowsec meant that
I think
the tie-dye, it's because the lowsec, it's a double-edged sword, right? We don't understand it from nullsec going to lowsec, a place where people can blob up and not worry about bombs or not worry about bubbles, but also the lowsec warriors are not used to fighting in heavy lag, which means that suddenly in a big fight where it's really going down, all of their precious slave sets are just which is hilarious.
Well, and we just threw money at the problem. If you kill a slave set, you get 250 mil.
You get a little bounty. So every little like adorable like newbie is sitting there madly trying to get
the thrashers.
That's what I would be doing.
Well, so the interesting thing about fighting these sort of low sec, what we call elite PvP guys, is that the way they define their victories is very different from what we define ours. We have very concrete objectives. Take this space. Take this moon. We have something that we're striving to do. And for them, like you talk to them on Reddit or in whatever chat room, or if you're insane fail heap challenge, I know. I'm sorry. Sorry, did I trigger humans?
No, it's just I'd be worried that by remembering the posts on fail heap, with the exception of Grath's posts, which are hilarious, that otherwise I could just feel neurons beginning to pop.
Grath kicking the beehive there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Grath. You don't pick a fight with Grath, and they picked a fight with Grath. Like that is if Grath Telkin is like you are wrong and you are dumb, and I have gotten in front of a raging Grath Telkin in real life between him and Trinity Tanner at Vegas, and
that was amazing.
That was probably one of the most courageous moments in my entire life. Right, I have done some pretty crazy things. That was probably number one in terms of, oh boy, both of these guys are extremely hard men, and I'm me. And that sounds like the start of a gay porno, but the reality was, ooh baby, you don't pick a fight.
Is that the new RMT method? Is that what we're doing now?
Horny white boy lifestyle, right?
Yes, so exactly.
Do that.
That's what the yacht is for, the HMS RMT.
Exactly. So, fail heap. They argue with Grath and make it personal with Grath, and that's just dumb. But anyway, let's go away from that.
So the interesting thing is that they define what is victory to them differently. They're here. We're here for the fights. We're here to have fun. And to them, fun is just having these good fights. So we've had some success against them. I'm not saying we're swinging 100 yet, but or batting 1,000 yet. But it'll be interesting to see. Like we have a timer against them tonight. Will they show up? I don't know. How quickly does it turn against them? Where you're losing your slave pods, you're losing your non-SRP ships. When does that become unfun, and then you just stop showing up?
Typically 3 fights.
3 fights? Okay. That's the Travis Muskrat ratio right there?
Yes, 3 fights.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, Travis absolutely vanished. Like he lost 3 fleets, and then he's like sort of gone from Eve now. Maybe he'll come back, maybe not. But it is interesting. So like like what Asher was talking about, like in terms of like the objectives that we're going for, low-sec is different for us because we're not interested in actually like taking and holding these moons. So what we're doing is, I mean, with the exception of, I don't know, like if our enemies want those moons, like if Shadow Cartel wants those moons, we will happily strike some sort of deal and be like, okay, Snuffbox has these moons in Black Rise. We don't want to hold them. We can't hold them, but we'll give them to you, or we'll have a field here and we'll kill these guys so you can get it. Because right now we blow up these moons and Snuff just retowers them because we're going after their fleets, not to actually really take and hold their moons. But we'll find somebody to hold their moons, just to twist the knife a little bit more. That's the hope.
If I Googled the Mittani and twist the knife, how many search results would I get?
Probably about as many as a red shirt or horny workout style. Like after a certain point, I would have probably found a better phrase, but it just sort of becomes iconic, and you just
it's pretty big in your word cloud.
People will be upset. It's like the one time on the Meta Show, I showed up with a gray shirt, and chat exploded. People were unhappy that there wasn't a red shirt. So if I post a C update or something and there's no twist the knife,
I think every single public statement has always had it. For me.
Exactly, it's got to be in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, Asher, back to you. So let's talk about the actual fight itself. Let's get to how you ended up setting this up. I know that you were planning this particular fight for a long time. Why don't you tell us that story?
Yeah. So, like I said, they fly these really tight formations that look very bombable. Even with a smart bomb, if you fly these really tight formations, you can be bombed by a good bombing FC. And we've got Boat. He's very good at that. So, but you obviously it can't be applied to you at all in low sec. So I was starting to think, what can we do to this group of people? And they announced those command destroyers, the MJD destroyers. And so we were thinking, well, this is what can work here? And there's a lot of problems. Even with a small amount of movement, if someone tries to like triple jump them onto you, you miss. It's very hard to aim them correctly. So we were thinking about all this kind of stuff, and then what we did was we ended up just with a warp in, basically with probe results, and we worked very hard on our positioning, because what happens is if the fields overlap the destroyers, they jump each other multiple jumps away, and so you end up splitting groups into 3 or 4 balls. It's not actually good. So our pilots spent a lot of time getting practicing and getting it so that all their fields just basically just touched each other's edge, and we were able to jump a fleet without multiple jumping. It's very I know nerdy and technical, but it was important. And so in the end, what we did was we brought our formation in. We brought our Proteuses have scrams. We scrammed their legions, which are their Logi ships, and we left their Macarials unscrammed. And of course, our Proteuses were unscrammed as well. So the end result is that all their battleships got jumped 100 kilometers away, along with the Proteuses. They just disappeared. Then we had a Jackdaw fleet that was in the process of warping down, tackles all the legions so that they are hard tackled, scrammed, and webbed. That means that the reps are 100 kilometers apart and they aren't moving. And so we're going through, we dropped some dreads, and we've got 20 Macarials and Nestors just pointed, and we're just going through them. It was very slow as tie-dye, but it was quickly, in game time. And at that point, we dropped the Capital Hammer because our Capital boys were anxious to to get in and shoot some stuff. We sort of in the post game, the Snuff and friends were talking about how they thought the fight was still on, but we still had our MJD destroyers, so we could have just pulled the trick over and over again until we split the whole fleet and won the fight.
Yeah,
or they ran.
I remember we were discussing the tactics involving this with our Proteus scrams for 3 weeks before this fight actually happened, and in those 3 weeks you're just sitting there chomping at the bit, and you're getting blue balled so much that you're actually starting to get a little violent in Illuminati.
I was making liberal use of the shift key. But yeah, well, the thing is, the Proteuses, like you said, are not the actual. If we just say, we're fighting Macarials, what ship should we take? We would generally say, rattlesnakes. But because of the particular trick we were planning, the Proteuses with the built-in scramblers were the right ship to take for that day. So it was, it'll be interesting to see what doctrines we take against them in the future, because I don't think we're going to try the same trick again. I don't think they'll fall for it again either.
Maybe they will. I mean, the thing about this that's interesting is, and I'm really glad that you're here to be able to explain that, is that a lot of times people who are FCs, the level of detail and planning that to engage in these tactics, right? When you're dealing with a really thorny problem, particularly in low sec, where people you can't rely on, things like bombs or bubbles. From a certain perspective, I don't want to say that they're crutches, but they kind of can be, right? Like a lot of these challenges that we have of needing to individually point all of the, not just point but scram. 20 plus ships to be able to hold them and actually confirm a kill, rather than having people just be able to scamper. In nullsec, pretty much the only equivalent to this sort of level of issue is a slippery Pete fleet, a sneaky Pete fleet. And basically what ended up happening here, as well, because actually PL brought a small group of Petes to this, but DBRB, like we already know,
the small is 100, by the way, Mittens. They had 100 Petes.
Yeah, it's a small fleet. Because the thing about Petes that's funny is because we developed this in nullsec a while back, whereby we, I mean not me, but the organization, and I'm not sure whether it was DBRB who originally came up with it, but if you have a Virtue Prober, the moment that the Petes land, especially in heavy tie-dye, you just have an interceptor fleet, and just 30 interceptors can counter an entire 100-man Pete fleet. Because, you landed, you don't get an opportunity to snipe. The first time that Pete group landed, they lost 4 Tengus right off the bat to boat, and then they played basically no part in that fight at all. NC Dot brought some Sleipnirs. Was it NC Dot with the Sleipnirs?
That's been an interesting story, is that these guys, they say form Voltron when they call in all their allies to honorably third party only against us. The interesting thing about these fights has been, and this is unusual, for the first time, we usually have the numbers advantage, but when it comes to doctrinal ships, your battleships, your main DPS ships, we've been pretty much highly outnumbered in a lot of these fights. I added up the numbers for that particular fight, and we had about 200 mainline DPS ships, and then we had 300 frigates, interceptors, and destroyers. And they had about 370 mainline doctrine and DPS ships. So the actual amount of DPS on the field is almost always going to them. We're almost always ceding that advantage. So we're having to use the power of newbies, using E-War, using tackle, using all this kind of stuff, and leverage that against them, and sort of be creative, which I think is new for our organization. We're used to just dropping as many ships as we want on people.
Well,
I think it's good.
It's not that new. We've been having that issue for a little while now, where we actually, like, the hostiles have had higher amounts of DPS fleet ships in their fleet, and we just have more E-War frigates and stuff like that. But I think we're slowly catching up to the curve where we get the Karma fleet guys, we get the new players, and we're slowly being able to force them into the newer DPS ships. And I think it's like a curve that we have to catch up with. Like, I think the biggest fight that I can remember, or the most recent biggest fight that I can remember, was the one in Fountain, where they had 3 mainline DPS ships and we had 100 Dominixes. So.
Right. I think it's interesting. So somebody in chat, and this is clearly probably intended as a troll, or at least somebody from the anti-Imperium side of the aisle, saying, and then you dropped 100 caps. And one of the things that is interesting about Imperium Doctrine is that we only really drop large numbers of caps besides the odd, 5 dreads. Like, there's a limit of 5 dreads, which we lost in that Maze Fleet whelp the other day in Cloud Ring. But our policy is we only drop caps in a situation where we already have controlled the subcapital battlefield. So the call went out, and I was actually in comms, and I gave the order to drop the hammer because the tide had turned. The FCs were going like, no, let's keep killing them. No, I'm like, no, let the caps in. Let's do this, and just again, here's the catch. I twist the knife. So usually you're not going to see. We could. And actually, at the start of the low-sec campaign, I had to remind our FCs, or by remind, I mean, be kind of a dick about it. We do have a massive capital and super capital fleet, but it's still important to remember that you have to win subcapitals, and you can't rely on capitals as a crutch, because then you end up in a BR5 situation, right? You end up in a situation where you're so used to just winning the cap fight, your subcapital skills atrophy. And one of the things that I love about what Asher has done with this fight, and what all of our FCs working together, and it might have been Sothrasil doing the virtue probing, I'm not sure, because he's asking in chat, and so if that was actually him with the Pete fleet and chasing the Petes around, congratulations to Sothrasil. Maybe it wasn't, who knows, I have no idea. But a lot of really gritty tactical plans went into this, and was executed perfectly. So, a lot of credit to you on that, Asher.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
So what happened with the Sleipnirs in that fight? Actually, that's one of the things that, like, NC Dot, like, they had a Sleipnir fleet. The Pete fleet was getting dealt with by the interceptors. What happened with the Sleipnirs?
Well, so before there was 2 other fleets. There were 4.
You want to talk about something else first? You go first.
No, that's fine. That's fine. There was a Macario fleet. There was a Sleipnir fleet. There was a Harbinger fleet, which was Spectre.
The Spectre fleet.
That's right. Spectre fleet was there.
And there were the Slippery Petes from PL. And so we had the Pete's taken care of. Like that was taken care of. And then what I did was I knew I couldn't really do the plan with the Sleipnirs and the Harbingers shooting at me, so we kind of just split off. We warped in on the Sleipnir fleet. I headshot Fufa. He messaged me angrily afterwards, and I told him I only headshot good FCs. So there's a pat on the head.
Flattered.
Yeah. So we headshot him, and then we took out a little bit of their fleet, but we just, it was more like showing that if you guys come in on us, we're gonna trade better than you can trade with us. And so they pulled some range after that, and then we warped up again, and we warped down on the Harbinger fleet, and we were cutting through them. It was like I was in tie-dye, but it was like, even in tie-dye, Harbinger was dying every 10 seconds. Basically, as quick as
not
you could
very
lock
durable.
them.
So yeah.
No, they weren't. And then that's when Snuff brought the Macarial fleet in. They decided to engage and sort of help their allies, or they claimed that they weren't their allies, but I actually had the Spectre fleet up, or the stream up, and one of them tackled his Snuff Proteus, and their FC got on and said, "Untackle that Proteus. Listen to your FCs." So I kind of knew what was up at that point.
But honorable third party.
Yeah, that's when we kind of went for the trick. And then after we killed all the Macarials that we had separated, I pointed my fleet at the Sleipnirs, and they warped off, and that was the end of that fleet. Yeah.
Well, that's credit also to Korak12345. He's pointing out that he's not on an anti-Imperium side; he's on an anti-everyone side, and wants to see all of us die. So credit to you. But no, it is interesting. Like, this is one of the reasons why it's difficult for people in the Imperium to even bother buying into hostile narratives about, like, oh, you have too many blues or honor or nullsec blobbers or whatever. Is because here's the thing. Human nature in any kind of fight is when the chips are down, you will bring every resource at your disposal to win. And so you see repeatedly in these low-sec fights, Snuffbox and Shadow Cartel claim that they would never ever blue one another and they would never work together. Well, a couple weeks ago, they all formed Voltron, and sure enough, Snuff and Shadow Cartel were working together. In this, it's all a blue, blue, blue. The Imperium has too many blues, a blue, 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 cry, cry, cry. And yet, again and again and again, the hypocrisy of our enemies is exposed. Instead of simply admitting that the truth, which is if you are fighting fair, you are not fighting at all. They maintain this idea that they have some sort of principle that they are somehow better than us in some way, and that they would never do these things that they do day after day, week after week, and situation after situation. There's nothing wrong with fighting and playing to win, but just ditch the hypocrisy, for fuck's sake.
Just own up to it.
Yeah, just Laz, I won. Deal.
Yeah. Laz, I know you're really a stickler for time. So can I get 2 minutes to rant? I got a rant. I'm sitting on.
Oh, you got a rant. Awesome.
I want to. Okay.
I was actually about to cut off the guy in the red shirt.
Yeah, so I figured. This is a CCP please. This is also a CCP please rant. Can we just admit that all the players have taken the Entosa system in, they've looked at it, and they've rejected it? Because what we all do is, even though you're supposed to fight over the Entosa's links, we all go to the main system that's been reinforced, and our fleets slug it out. And then the winner gets an hour as a bonus for your victory. You get an hour more time to Entosis the other systems because you won. Like, oh, here's an extra hour that you have to stay up for this alarm clock. Like, it's a dumb system, and no one's even participating in it anymore. Like, no one runs around and has these engaging, kiting fights over Entosis, modules or whatever. And everyone, the Russians are doing it. They all just show up in the system. They slug it out like we used to, and then the winner gets to keep the system. So I think we can have the ADMs. Just tie that into HP on whatever the objective is. If you have a really high ADM, your station or your TCU or whatever has really high HP. And if you have a low ADM, it can be popped by 10 guys in a frigate over 10 minutes. That's my rant. Done.
That was a very concise rant. Wow.
Yeah.
I only took a minute. You asked for 2.
Wow, we even have
so
4. Wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to
I'll see the remainder of my time in the chair.
Man, we have you on
defense
more
rests.
often, Asher. This is awesome. It is a curious thing. I mean, I think that the reason, people in NullSec want the Slugfest. They don't want to have Alliance tournament 5 versus 5 elite honor PvP bullshit. And that's why you're seeing they have the Slugfest, and then you just sort of deal with the Sov lasers. That's the way it works in practice. This reality refutes the theory behind the command node whack-a-mole stuff. The idea that EVE players in nullsec will secretly want to enjoy alliance tournament style gameplay, and on the field that has been disproven. Now, in terms of gameplay resources, I don't really know whether CCB is going to have the wherewithal or the need to adjust the system. We know Citadels are kind of going away from the Entosis mechanic because nobody likes it.
That's the tacit admission right there. That was the admission that it wasn't a great system.
So Jester posted another, Jester Trek, who was on the CSM back in the day, and claimed that he would never be posting things or blogging again, popped up on Reddit again to post yet another graph about the player chart. And it looks like the numbers of EVE players have actually sort of stabilized into a plateau, which is really good news, because previously it was actually going down. So this is actually a positive thing, particularly with Valkyrie coming out. And in there, Pro God Legend was popping up and arguing about how this was proving the success of Fozzy and blah, blah, blah. And it was, I don't think he's actively playing at the moment. So it's just kind of a situation. People are not really taking space and taking Sov because the Sov is not valuable to hold.
Wait,
right?
Mittens, you don't know, do you?
He joined test.
You don't know about the All-Star team.
I do know that he actually joined test. I don't know whether he was actively playing.
No, I fought against him the other night. I think, yeah. He was in a fleet. I don't know if he's seeing it, but he was in that fleet.
Oh, he was in the fleet. Okay.
He was in space. That's
Okay.
Well,
that's progress.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's just interesting to see, because the reason why we're reaching for the Dominion system, the reason why PL hasn't actually taken space or anything on their own in a long time, is because the incentives are simply not there for it. It's still all about the moon income in general, and I think that if they added some sort of buffs to Sov, as usual, as we keep saying, you'd see people fighting over territory more often, rather than going, let's go slap fight in low-sec for content and also establish dominions and all these other wacky things to avoid this gameplay. We're not even getting harassed.
Would both of you agree that Phoebe accomplished 95% of the goals that CCP wanted, and Fozzy basically accomplished very little to none of them? About splitting up the empires, opening up space. I don't think it was Fozzy that let these smaller groups flourish. I think the fact that we couldn't put our carriers, into Omist in a matter of 15 minutes.
I think there's problems with both, like huge underlying issues with both systems. But
I think both of them were really sort of implemented in a ham-handed way. I mean, as I've said before, like with Phoebe, the 5 light year limit itself, and they've had to walk back jump fatigue.
Right.
Like jump fatigue is just any sort of gameplay where you're just sitting around waiting out a timer is bad for players. Nobody
I agree with that.
Makes it right. I do like the fact that space is easier for smaller groups to take, in the sense of the blocks abandoning the space that's worthless, but that's like the problem is being solved, but just because the Russians, the Imperium, and PL and NC Dot all got ahead of the game. Yeah. The people who tried to actually fight and maintain their space in the same way that Fozzy was intended, like not Gentleman's Club. What were they? G Club. Was it Gentleman's Club? They just they just drowned under it.
They took too much space.
Yeah, they didn't make the call to sever because they didn't realize that they didn't need the space. But anyway, we're running out of time.
No, we're out of time. We're out of time. We're done. So
that's it,
guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Let's give some shout outs to subscribers and donations though. Before
so guys, you get $20 from Victor Feldman. Thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate all your bouncing and camaraderie. Shirar, aka Donald Trump, with the 10. Thank you so much, Mr. Trump. And then shout out to Asher, man. Asher, thanks so much for coming on. Especially since I messaged you an hour before the show. I was like, hey, you want to come on? And you're like, sure. So quick shout out also to Asher's podcast. Make sure you check that out. I think the next episode's coming out soon once he finds a new guest for this week's.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you want to be a guest on my podcast, message me.
Also, thank you to CCV for going ahead and giving us these Pirate Faction Ship rookie codes that we can then make it rain on the boys, as well as to Blue Microphones and all of our other sponsors. And I think that is it for today.
Yep. So, guys, coming up next is the Boat Show. Make sure you stay tuned, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Boat Show!
The Boat Show. Boat Show! All right, bye, guys.